Yeah. So.
All right. You got the bishop on camera saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all live?
All right. All set. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Fire away with the questions.
Fire away, sure.
So, Bishop, what do you think the legacy of the Pope is?
You know, I have a problem with the word legacy because it focuses on the past. And I think if we understand legacy as being what continues, then I can answer and say his vision, I think, his holistic vision about the goodness, the humanity of every human person because of the three essential relationships: God, community, and our common home, the earth. This was his central message. And if we keep those three essentials together, we grow as human beings. And I think that I would like to see that continuing. I would like to promote that as much as possible in all that we do. And that is my prayer and hope, that that vision will continue. So call that his legacy. I'll be very happy to see that continue.
And his work on the environment?
That is a part of it, as I mentioned, our common home. And our environment, which, as you know, is really the natural order in which we live. And it's as small as a garden, a home that we take care of. It's as large as a neighborhood that we live in. It's as large as a community, which includes people of all faiths and all persuasions, right? It includes our state, our country, it includes the whole world. It's like concentric circles. But our care for the environment begins right where we are, and each and every one of us, how we care for our common home. And I have no doubt that the more we understand that and probe the depth of his teaching, that we'll continue that good work.
This is a time of uncertainty, so how would you advise the people that you lead to move forward?
Right. We dig down into our faith in our belief in Jesus Christ, of course, who we know we just celebrated his death and resurrection. I would say even for people not of faith, that what I see on Good Friday is the triumph of love. When I look at the crucifix, I see a God telling me, I love you, each and every one of us. And I think if we know that each and every one of us is loved by God, every one of us counts. Nobody should be excluded from the table of God's love. And I think the more that we dig into that, the more we find our security. Because there's no such thing as a wasted or useless life. There's no such thing, even as an experience that may not for us be a pleasant one, that we can't learn from. And for that matter, there's no such thing as a death that does not become the source of new life. That's even in nature itself, you know. There's a beautiful scripture quote from St. John: unless a grain of wheat, unless a grain falls into the ground and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat. But a seed that falls into a ground and dies actually springs into a plant. And there's no way of knowing from that seed what that plant is going to look like. So when a person like Pope Francis dies, who we very much esteem, you know, you asked the question about the legacy, what I think is that his life on this earth was just like a seed. And now that he goes on to his eternal home, that will blossom. And as we continue to trust in God, God will bring out of that tremendous good. Saint Therese de Lisieux, the little flower, many people know her. She's a doctor of the church, died at the age of 23, much younger than Pope Francis. And she said famously, I want to spend my eternity doing good on earth. So I believe that the good, and even if we don't look at it from the point of view of faith, I believe that the good that people do in this life has an eternal value. And somehow or other, even if you don't believe, as I do theologically, that the good that Pope Francis, the seeds that he showed, will spring to life. And I think that's real. That will happen. That's my prayer. So, and that's the consolation I would give as well, too. Sometimes we feel that we have unfinished business, you know, and I'm going to tell you, as you get older, you worry about that a lot more, you know. But I think that by the power of God's grace, that good can continue. So that's my prayer and hope.
It's said that the
I'd like to answer you directly, but let me take a little detour for just a moment. When I first came into this diocese, I heard behind my back, is he liberal or is he conservative? And everybody said that to my face. You know, there was a real concern about that. And I said, if you hear anybody say this, ask them, do I have any other choice? These labels, which are very common in our political environment, have also been predicated of Pope Francis and other popes. This pope is conservative, this pope is liberal. So I don't know what the cardinals will decide, what they think is needed at this time, you know, whether we'll call it one way or people will characterize it as one way or another. I do know that Pope Francis was totally committed to the gospel. And many people, when they read the scriptures, say, oh my God, this guy Jesus was radical, because he did certainly challenge things as they were, you know, the status quo. So one might characterize that as liberal or progressive even, you know. Some people speak of Jesus as only a marginal Jew, because even though he went to temple and followed all of the laws of his Jewish faith, at the same time he went beyond the boundaries, you know, picking grain on the Sabbath. You know, not supposed to work on the Sabbath. He said, well, you know, if you had an ox that fell into a ditch, who wouldn't pull it out? Or if your mother or father were ill, who wouldn't go to their aid, you know? So he often challenged the leaders of his time. Pope Francis had some very powerful statements that challenged a lot of the status quo. And I would think any pope is going to do that, whatever his successor may be.
What direction would you like to see the church?
I'm sorry?
What direction would you like to see the church?
I want to go in the direction that the Lord is leading me. Every day, it's not my vision. You know, every day my prayer always is, Lord, what do you want me to do with the rest of my life? You know, what do you want me to do to atone for my sins? The things I have done, the things I failed to do, and how can I possibly cooperate with your grace going forward? And where do I look for clues for that? No, I don't expect an answer to come down from heaven. I look for clues in the people around me who tell me what their needs are. I listen to what my brothers and sisters are saying about what their hungers and what their desires are. And then I ask, Lord, how can I possibly respond to that person's real human needs? And that's my desire, you know, so wherever that leads me, if it means that I end up on some picket line somewhere because that seems to be a tactic that works, fine. If it means that I write an article or something to inspire, you know, some people, that's fine. If it means I get together with a group of people and say, we got to form a little committee right here to address this issue, that's fine. And I think of doing that not only with, you know, the people that are with me in the Catholic Church, but the whole community, because I think at least my view is that we need to work together. So,
Bishop, do you have any personal memories of
Oh,
both of you?
a lot of good personal memories, yeah. I'll tell you, the first thing Pope Francis said to me when I met him for the first time, this wasn't the first time I heard from him, but when I met him face to face, the first thing he said, and I'll quote, pray for me, just like that, you know. He really, his English was not his top language, but he said that, you know, and he said that more than once. I've met him several times, you know. I'll tell you the one thing that struck me that I heard that he said. I didn't hear him say it personally, but I think a reporter had asked him after he was popified, whatever that is, whatever they call that, how would you describe yourself? You know, it's Francis Bergoglio. You know, he wasn't Papa Francesco yet. How do you describe yourself? What would you say to identify yourself? His answer was, well, the one thing I could definitely say that identifies who I am is I am a sinner. I felt so good when he said that, because here's a person that has just gotten what is considered kind of a promotion, you know, is raised up to this level, you know, like Peter, and his first thought about it said, I'm a sinner, you know, and I think what he wanted to do was to identify with everybody, with particularly people that feel left out. You know, he always spoke about the people in the margins, and that means all of us in some way. You know, not just the economically poor, people who are lonely, people who feel somehow or other they don't have a home, people that might be caught in a cycle of addiction, people that might have been survivors of terrible abuse, not only sexual abuse, domestic violence and so forth, being in prison. And he always showed his heart was on his face. And my last memory of him was in late January when I was in Rome for a gathering of graduates of North American College. That's where I graduated from. We had a reunion. And he was there, was in the audience hall, and how he managed to smile and be so cheerful in spite of the fact that he could hardly get out of the wheelchair. You could see his pain every time he got up again too, but he had that smile, and how he didn't become exhausted. And so many people much younger, you know, than him might have said, I want a pillow, but there he was. He was there, he was present. And he wouldn't stay in the hospital either. You know, he just had to get out. And he did his papal audience right there, Sunday morning. And the next morning he died. So the energy, I think, that came from his heart and his compassion for those that were down and out seemed to have radiated and even given him life as well too. I think that's what his strength was from. That's what I remember him as.
How do you feel about that? The Pope dying just the day after Easter, he was there.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, if I had a good day that I wanted to die, it would be Easter Sunday or Easter Monday. Actually, we celebrate Easter this whole week, so I could still say Happy Easter, and it's still Easter Day, you know. And I have no idea. Did he have a premonition? I don't know, but it's a mystery. Nobody really expected it. You know, when I woke up this morning, people were texting me. People sometimes text you, as I'm sure they text you at 4 o'clock in the morning, sometimes in the middle of the night. And I saw these texts, Pope Francis died? You know? Wasn't he just alive? And, you know, but the good that he does goes on. You know, a woman said to me, a good friend of mine, Carol, she wrote to me, she texted me, she said, he was really a good person. And I texted back, you know, he still is a good person. In Judaism, I was texting with Rabbi Greg Weitzman this morning, there's an expression, when a person dies, you lose a life, but the relationship continues. And I think that however we view, you know, theologically what happens at death, that our relationship with Papa Francesco continues. Kind man, loving man, gentle man, passionate about justice. And I think this is the way not only that we remember him, but I choose to continue to relate to him. I'm relying on his prayers, even as I pray for him.
And as we go forward and select the next Pope, I've heard people question if we should go in a younger direction, but is that possible given the amount of experience and learning?
You know, remember when John Paul I was elected? He was only 59 years old. Now, I don't know how you think of being 59, but 59 is, you know, is the new 69 or 79. It gets younger every year, you know. So it's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. We have had young popes. I don't have any tea leaves in order to predict. And they always say the man that goes in as pope always comes out as cardinal, you know. So I have no connections or thought. But I pray that whatever it is that we most need at this time, that the Holy Spirit will guide their actions. And I hope it's a quick conclave, too. Why do I say that? I mean, I hope that there's consensus that is reached very quickly. And we should know. From what I understand, 15 to 20 days after his death, a conclave has to be called. And I'm not a numbers man, but is the way I read that, they have to be in conclave by no later than May the 11th. And typically the conclaves, at least in modern times, have taken no more than a week or two. So I think, you know, but if it turns out that we have a pope before June the 1st, don't say that I predicted it, but I hope we do soon. Yeah.
Just one last one, sorry.
Sure.
Will the diocese be holding any services tonight or during these 9 days? It's the 9 days of mourning, correct? Can you
Correct.
tell us, are there any remembrances or services that folks should know about, or what will the diocese be
Yes, I would like to say we have next Sunday in the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. Okay, we have a Mass at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. next Sunday, which I will celebrate. And it's also what we call Divine Mercy Sunday. So it's a very fitting time, and it's still within the octave of Easter. So we will be celebrating a Mass for Pope Francis on Easter, a week from Easter Sunday. So that's next Sunday. What's the date again? 27th. Next Sunday, April 27th, 5 p.m. in the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. And I'll be there.
And you said that's Divine Mercy Sunday?
It's Divine Mercy, the Sunday of the Divine Mercy. It's a day in which we believe there's a special outpouring of grace for anybody that asks for it and asks for God's help. So Pope St. John Paul II was a great promoter of that devotion. But it'll be a regular Sunday Mass. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure always. Thanks for all the good work that you do. I very much appreciate it. And at any time, you know to contact Catherine, and you want to sit down and have a chat or something from me, I'm very, very happy to meet with you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming out. God bless. Thank you. I don't think it'll snow anymore. I think we're finally past the